It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
Welcome to Voice of Reason, a weekly report and discussion on the important issues of concern on the local, national, and global stage. And now, the host and moderator of Voice of Reason, Dan Giordana.
Hello, and welcome to the Voice of Reason, 1 hour panel discussion focusing on global topics and their effects. I'm Dan Giordana, your host, and I'm joined by Michele Solomon, local activist involved in pipeline stuff big time. Paul Tappenden.
That's my title.
Paul Tappenden, the Rockland Forager, and Sherwood Martinelli, who's focused on mostly nuclear issues. So guys, we're going to handle the first week of knowing that Donald Trump is president, what the implications are, what has happened socially. I think we should talk about pretty much as we can fit into this segment, every angle. So I'll toss it out to you, Paul. Like, why don't you? What have you been seeing? What do you think of it?
I tell you, to be honest with you, I've been seeing a heck of a lot of whining going on, and I mean, the guy hasn't even got into office yet, and already there's so much complaining about it. I mean, as I said before, in our last segment, neither one of them were any great bargain. I wouldn't really wanted either one of them in place, but now we have one of them. So we've got to see what happens. I think it's way too early to be making decisions. People have been complaining about the folks that he's getting on his side there, and again, I don't know enough about any of them and their backgrounds to really know what they're going to bring to the table. I mean, we've seen some of their history, and some people think it's bad, some people think it's good. But
I think there's fear. I think there's political dissent, and I'm trying to see. I feel like there's a percentage. How much of it do you think is fear?
There's a world of difference between fear and terror, and what you're beginning to see is terror.
Right. Well, Paul.
But I think you would have seen it no matter who won, because quite frankly, I mean, both of them have been hated. I mean, all along.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with the aftermath now. I don't think it would have been any different with it would have been different with Clinton in power, because the left has a machinery out there for protest, whereas the right doesn't. The right don't really have protesters, and so the reaction wouldn't have been the same as it's been. Right now there's a lot of unrest going on around the country, and it'll ultimately die down. People will get tired of running through the streets or whatever. And personally, I'm just going to sit back and see what happens before I say anything, because who knows? He might turn out to actually be good.
So, Michele, what are you thinking?
Well, I just wanted to respond to what Paul just said, because you said that the left has people on the streets, but the right doesn't. And I'm curious, what does isn't that what you said?
Well, no. What I'm actually talking about is the
how they respond.
The domain of protesting
on the other side.
The domain of protesting is really on the left for the most part. If you look throughout history, the right don't.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does the right do? They burn crosses. They racist graffiti on churches. We've already seen desecration.
They attack Muslims.
So I just want to point that out.
I'm not saying that.
I didn't think you were. I just wanted to put that out to the audience, that that's the way the right is responding. And much prefer having people marching on the street, mostly peacefully. And the other reason I wanted to interrupt you and bring that out is because I've seen threads on Facebook, a lot of comments by people who said, get over it already. She lost, move on. And they're really missing the point. It's our constitutional right to take to the streets in peaceful protest. Yeah. And we're being really good Americans for the most part, people who aren't, burning and looting, which is a very minor, and who knows how much of that is, provocateur, So I'm really proud of that's happening in my country. I would be actually more depressed if I didn't see greater turnout in that. And I just wanted to make that point. That's a really good thing. And the people on the right who are missing that, to me, is just great indication of how stupid they are.
Well,
let's face it. I mean, both sides have a lot of stupid people. I mean, 90% of the population are not too bright. I mean, come on.
That's Paul, ladies and gentlemen.
But that said, I just want to add, I do agree with you that we do have to give him a chance. He does have to, we have to give him a chance to see what he's going to do.
So what are the most important issues? Like when I think of the show and I think of this last week, I'm looking at things like the TPP, the climate change. I'm also looking at the cabinet posts against things he might have said on the stump. I'm more and more confused as I try. It's like you could shake a magic 8-ball and know better.
But how much of a
even
chance
on hard analysis?
How much of a chance?
How much of a chance do we give him? Because I'm sitting here, I listen to Paul, I listen to everybody, and I'm sitting here and I'm seeing certain things from a very different perspective, okay? I'm sitting here and it's clear that they're going to go after Obamacare. That's going to take 20 million people off of health care that didn't have it before. I'm sitting here looking at the fact that Ryan, planning on working with Trump and Senator Mitch McConnell, is going after Medicare, Medicaid. That's going to put more people off the doles, okay? I'm sitting here and I actually read a comment that Donald Trump made that says, well, maybe we're not going to deport all these illegal aliens, undocumented immigrants, he should be saying, but maybe instead we'll just intern them until we figure out who the good ones are. That's a very scary word, Then we sit here, we look at his cabinet picks, we look at the staff he's putting together. He's talking about making Mayor Giuliani, Secretary of State, the man that moved his mistress into the mayor's mansion while he was still married to his wife, and that's the least of the bad things I have to say about that man. You're sitting here, we got Steve Bannon, the leader, and chief KKK leader of the alt-right is now going to be his first or second in command, depending on who you talk to. I'm sitting here this morning, what do I wake up to? His first wife, is now sitting here saying, oh, I want to be the diplomat to the Republic of Czechoslovakia. That was followed by falling asleep last night to the news that Donald Trump wants top secret clearance for all of his children and his son-in-law.
Yep.
I mean, you're sitting there and
that's true.
Yeah, I did see that. I have that from one source.
Then you're sitting here and on the 60 Minutes interview, you have his daughter Ivanka Trump deliberately wearing nothing but jewelry from her jewelry line so that the next day they could monetize the White House by having her jewelry salespeople put a thing out. Oh, this line was featured on the president's speech. I mean, how much of a chance? I'm sorry, chance over, it's done, it's over with. He's not my president. He will never be my president. And there's boots on the ground in the street saying he's not anybody's president. And those numbers are going to continue to increase, And the sad thing about it is we're already seeing a militarized police department basically becoming goose-stepping Gestapo thugs that are planning on taking and decimating and harming and injuring these lawful protesters,
Okay, but on the other side,
is over.
There's a lot of governors that are fighting back and saying that their states and their cities, mayors and governors saying that they would remain sanctuary cities even at the loss of federal funding. There is pushback, and I think that's the most important thing for us as this panel to stay focused on is how do we push back, where is the pushback, and how do we get behind those people?
But my point is the mass media is trying to normalize this monster and his insidious demon-spawned children.
Yeah, but the only way...
And we cannot allow that normalization to occur.
Right, but the only way to not normalize that, I think, again, is to inform our audience and others who are willing willing to speak up and back the people who are speaking up for the things. Like, it's not going to be a red or blue issue. And I know amongst my friends and off air with some of you, I've said this. The need for a new party is going to rise where probably these other parties, the ones we have, will transform one or the other for one reason or another. And that's the odds I want to find statistically, because honestly the Republicans are poised to become the party to free the slaves again, just as much as the Democrats are on the verge of being the ones who support tyranny. And it's a very fine line. When you're at somebody told me this week that the stars are uniquely aligned, that it matches the French Revolution in that time in astrology, which, take it for what you want, but things are ripe for change. I don't think it's about Democrats or Republicans
I don't
agree.
disagree with you on that. And I'd also like to say, because I don't want it to seem like we're beating on the administration and or the police or things.
Yes.
Okay, I encourage that we exercise our First Amendment rights, that we protest in the streets, that we put boots on the street. But you know what? When you start destroying small business people's property, when you start blocking highways, that goes beyond your protected First Amendment rights, and that cannot be.
I hear what you're saying, but what about, Paul, you had something to say?
Yeah, I think that, up until this election, America was sitting on its hands. There was nothing going on in this country. People were sitting taking it all. But now everybody's angry. And now we have a nation of protesters. And I think this is about as healthy, or certainly for the healthiest we've been in many, many years. Because now, at last, Americans want to take things into their own hands. They want to see their own futures secured. They don't want to take this pushing around anymore. So that's what the good thing that's come out of this, so we have a president that everybody hates. I mean, it's causing us to really reassess our lives and what America means to all of us, So yeah, I think it's a good thing in many ways, I've said from the beginning, we had a choice between a criminal and a buffoon. Well, we've got the buffoon now, so now we have to do something about the buffoon, and hopefully we can put both of these people into the past and have a rebirth of this country, because that's what it needs.
Yeah, Michelle?
Well, I don't know what I can add to that. I agree with Paul that Trump is an agent of change, not in a way that maybe people who voted for him.
Creative destruction.
Yeah, I think it's motivated people. I agree with Paul to not be complacent, to realize that democracy is not a spectator sport, and the only way things are going to change is to take to the streets, to be active, to become activists, to participate more, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I guess what scares me is, A, we can't affect any kind of a change to reverse the damage that's being done for 2 years, okay? And 2, will all that apathetic 46% that didn't even bother to vote show up in 2 years? And 3, and I know some people might disagree with me, but in other words, from my perspective, if you did not bother to vote, you did not pay the price of admission to the protest opposing Donald Trump.
And I think we should actually deport all those people. Anyone who hasn't voted, they should be deported,
Well, I think we could sidetrack. I don't understand why Election Day isn't a national holiday and the Super Bowl is, and I don't understand why it's not mandatory, but what I've always wondered, and people that I share opinion with, why can't it be like a speeding ticket? If you don't vote, you get a ticket for like $125.
Or you could put it the other way.
You get the day off, and if you decide to do nothing with that vote,
you get
rewarded. I think the problem is
it's the same as like a speeding violation.
But everybody embraces the right of the vote, but they don't embrace the responsibility of the vote. they're two sides of the same coin. Yes, you have the right to vote, but you have the duty and responsibility to exercise that right. And I think if this country's going to go where it could go and should go to be as great as it can be, right. Okay? And there's a difference between saying make America great again and making America as great as it can be, because I believe our country can be a greater country than it is today. But
absolutely.
We're not going to see that reality in that future until all citizens, okay, begin exercising the basic duties and responsibilities of the most precious right bestowed upon them, and that is to go to the ballot box and vote.
But I'd also like to say that I think voting is really not as important as being involved on a more regular, consistent basis with the process of government and being involved in your community. I think voting is important. Certainly it's important, but it is not the most important thing. It happens to be very important on Election Day, and obviously it has a great impact. But there are so many more things people have to be inspired and educated and to step up to do on all the other days of the year. So
I want to pivot because on the election of Trump, we were talking about, and heading into our next segment, how it might affect things like the Keystone Pipeline. You guys had a couple of things to say about that. Why don't we move toward that, and let's start with there.
One of the
with
effects.
Trump what that means to pipelines in general.
I was reading this morning, and Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, has come out publicly on TV and said that he has great hopes, okay, that the election of Donald Trump will revive the Keystone Pipeline. It took us years to shut that bad project down, and now all of a sudden, because of Trump's election, we have leaders of foreign countries now looking at these horrid environmental projects and saying, under Trump, we can now bring them back to life, resuscitate them, and get them through and built and up and operational. That's right there is a very scary reality of the Donald Trump presidency and what we're going to see when he's saying things like, I mean, he's already sitting here, for instance, and figuring out how to get out from under the Paris Accords when it comes to climate change.
Yeah, well, one of the things about the Paris Accords is it's a 3-year agreement. He can't actually do anything for 3 years, even though it's not good that he's going to plan on doing so. And the other thing about the the XL pipeline, that's bad news that he would want to, and certainly he's going to want to get that pushed through. But if you pull the camera back, that the Keystone Pipeline is just one little blip, actually, although it's tremendously significant. There are pipelines crossing all over the United States under Obama, okay, that have been approved. They are everywhere. There are 300 new frack gas power plants already planned for America. So this is unfortunately not just going to be initiated by Trump. Unfortunately, people need to wake up. It's already been happening. It's been happening. It's the wrong direction for climate change. It's the wrong direction to build a sustainable, renewable energy economy, which we must do if we're going to have a sustainable future. So that's already here. And
we're going to take a break right there and come back with more of what Michele is talking about.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah?
Do you remember when my character Ella says she gave up texting and driving? I wish more people would do the same.
Tell me about it. TWD, texting while driving, not cool. Do you know how many near misses I've had lately because people are trying to blast off a quick text while they're behind the wheel?
Yeah, and I love texting just as much as anybody, but it can wait until I am parked because no text is worth being distracted and putting lives at risk.
A recent study just found that those who text while driving are 23 times more likely to be involved in an accident.
So, join us and our fellow castmates on Melrose Place along with AT&T in saying texting and driving, it can wait.
To learn more about the risks of texting and driving, sign the BFF pledge and get safe driving tips at facebook.com/ATT. I'm signing it.
Welcome back to the Voice of Reason. Our next segment is about pipelines. As Michele ended the last segment, let Michele begin this segment.
Okay, I wanted to talk about the Spectra AIM pipeline. And I left off saying that there are hundreds of pipelines all over the country that have popped up have been built in the last 10 or 15 years. And we have some very dangerous pipelines right here in our backyard in Rockland County. And the main one is the Spectra AIM pipeline, as you guys probably know about. It followed the path of an existing pipeline that's been laid about 50 years ago. And the company Spectra has expanded this gas pipeline because they're bringing more fracked gas in from the North Dakota, and they have built a 43-inch pipeline that has come through Rockland County and under the Hudson River across into Westchester County, and is destined all the way up to upstate New York into New England. It is all for export. There is no benefit. It is all risk for our citizens here. So my main concern with the Spectra AIM pipeline is that it is situated right next to Indian Point, which is an aging, failing nuclear power plant that has accidents frequently. And as you may have heard, just a week ago they had a cable fire there. And I then heard that it was actually more than they reported. So we got the Spectra AIM pipeline. I actually called a lot of our elected representatives today to find out if they had received the results of what our governor ordered, which was a independent risk analysis, but nobody seems to know anything, which also is of great concern.
So that would be one way for our audience to also participate, is call your representatives, ask them for information about these things. I'll hand it back to you.
Okay. I just want to give a little bit about the next pipeline that I'm concerned about is the Pilgrim Pipeline, which is coming it's connecting Albany to Linden, New Jersey. This pipeline carries oil. This oil is coming from the Bakken fields that is highly volatile. It's highly corrosive. So when it's corrosive, it can really wear out these pipelines. It's more susceptible to leaks and rupture because of the corrosive nature of it. This one is going to disrupt wetlands and open areas and urban areas. It's also mapped to go through an environmental justice area, which is through the Lenape Nation's lands in Mahwah, New Jersey. They have already suffered greatly for decades. They were a Superfund site twice as a result of the Ford Motor Company dumping hundreds of thousands of barrels of toxic material that just got dumped, buried into old iron mines, leaked into the water. The rates of cancer in the community are through the roof. Yeah. So this is also a very troublesome development that we need to stop. That's pretty much
the
lowdown on these two local pipelines. There are actions actually coming up in the next few days that hopefully we'll be able to put that up where they are and when they are.
So let's pivot to the Dakota access.
Real quick question. In other words, if I look at FERC and I look at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and I look at the intake pipe for Indian Point that cools for nuclear reactors, have the environmentalists looked at actually pitting the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, one federal agency, against the other federal agency, FERC, by filing a verified complaint with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission claiming that any kind of an accident and or explosion of the 60-year-old pipeline they're wanting to connect to, would literally clog the intake pipes for the cooling facility apparatus for Nuclear Point Indian Power Plant, thus endangering a meltdown of the reactors and asking for the NRC to intercede on behalf of their licensee against FERC. And I'm just wondering, because that would be a unique, unusual opportunity for us as activists to literally pit two agencies, both of which have never denied one of their licensees okay, requests. Like FERC has never denied an application for a pipeline ever in its entire history, and the reason for that is they're self-funded by the industry, just like Indian Point or just like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has never denied an exemption request by its licensees because they're completely self-funded by the licensees. And I'm sitting here salivating at possibly the opportunity of literally pitting these two, like, organizations of the federal government that are sort of on the dark side, one against the other, and see who wins.
Well, I'm going to give you the short answer to your question is I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if anyone has taken that tact. Paul, do you know anything about that?
No, I don't, but I'm inclined to think that since they're both government agencies, that they're not going to be fighting over it.
Yeah.
They're going to come to a quick agreement on that one.
I see. I agree. So, Paul, while we're talking, one of the things that I want to also focus on in the pipeline issue, which is a large issue with 1 million issues under that umbrella, is what's up in North Dakota access, and what is the state of the indigenous people and the protests there right now, and how is it connected to all of us? Because I think people have a disconnect. I think I find that a lot with I think there are a lot of even Trump voters that would be behind this issue if they understood it from the indigenous people's angle.
Well, I think that it represents the fight of the people versus the corporations. Basically, it isn't just that incident. It isn't just the Native Americans. It isn't just pipelines. It's happening in so many areas of our life. Where the corporations use the government to overpower the wishes of the people, and they come right in and do whatever they want to do. This whole idea of being able to what is it they exercise? I wrote it down here. There's a term for it.
The right of eminent domain.
Eminent domain. Thank you.
Yeah.
The whole idea of eminent domain is that the result is something that's going to be good for the people, something that will be for everybody's good. Well, what this eminent domain is out there, they're driving this thing through the reservation. They haven't even taken into account the wishes of the people there, and at the end of it, we don't get the oil. Yeah. The oil goes to China, so there's no benefit for us. So where does eminent domain come into this? And it's an abuse of their powers, basically. And when you start to look at the situation that's going on in North Dakota, there's a lot of abuses going on. One of the latest things I've been reading about is what they're doing to the bison.
Yeah.
They're herding up all the bison into corrals with razor wire, and they're starving them to death.
Yeah.
And this is just to punish the locals. They're doing all they can to punish the Native Americans for standing up for their own rights.
I have seen reporting on that.
Yeah.
That's what the white man did when they changed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're just carrying on the old practices. And this is an enlightened age. This shouldn't even be happening, but it's happening.
No, and that seems to be the reaction on so many
Just
levels.
a couple quick points. Like, for instance, you brought up the fact that, like, we're paying all the price, but we're getting none of the oil. I would suggest you look at Chesapeake Energy, okay, which is one of the largest holders of fracking rights in the United States right now, okay, and look at the fact that 51%, and this was when I checked it 2 or 3 years ago, of all the natural gas that Chesapeake Energy will extract from the ground through fracking is already owned and promised to CNOOC, C-N-O-O-C, which is a fully owned oil company owned by the Chinese government. Okay, then let's look at the Indians. Okay, we're sitting here, and I'm going to preface this quick little statement with the fact that there's international treaties that make it a war crime to use tear gas in the war theaters. Okay, yet we find the Bundy crowd innocent and let them go and drop all charges. But in the meantime, we have a militarized police department coming in and using tear gas, which is an international war crime, against protesters. Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just tear gas. They're using all kinds of weaponry against them.
Rubber bullets.
Well, they got their experimental sound equipment out there. I've heard some live reports about that, which I find compelling and interesting. I mean, the militarization of the police, the way corporations can kind of guide counties and townships. I mean, what can be done to combat that?
You brought up before the show, for instance, who's funding all this? Okay. Well, I can't go through the whole thing here, but in other words, it's like, for starters, we're told it's a $3.5 billion project. No, it's way bigger than that. Okay, there's 4 arms of the octopus that I've found so far. There's Sunoco Logistics. Okay. They've got a $2.5 billion line of credit for this project. Energy Transfer Partners, they got a $3.7 billion line of credit for this. Energy Transfer has another 1.5. Dakota Access has another 2.5. We're talking $9 or $10 billion and a list of who's who in the banking industry, not just for America but worldwide, are involved in funding this.
So one of the things that people can do is divest their money out of the banks, and it's easy to go online. I can't tell you all of the banks that are funding it, but Chase, Wells Fargo are just 2, but there are quite a few more.
I have 36 of them written down here.
Okay, and that's something that people can do if they want to support this cause, is to get your money out of those banks and let them know why, and go to a credit union and deposit your money there. That's one thing. The other thing I want to mention along this is of concern is the suppression of the media along this. You're not hearing anything in the mainstream media of significance about what's going on there. They have arrested numerous journalists, including Schlossberg, Dia Schlossberg, is that her name? Who was basically filming an action there. Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Was arrested and charged with felony. I believe that charged with causing a riot. That was thrown out. I don't know the result of the other journalists that I mentioned, but it's very troubling. It's very what's going on is horrendous. It's and nobody's stepping in to stop it. And I'm really disappointed in President Obama, who is not taking action. He has the power to stop it, and he's not doing it. I'm really disappointed in that.
Yeah.
You can put those names on the Voice of Reason Facebook page.
Just real quick, too, I don't know if anybody knows this, but when you look at FERC, one of the ways they get paid and make their money, okay, has everything to do with the volume of product that is being moved through these pipelines.
Oh, absolutely. So, Paul, you had some of the banks. I would like to make sure we get some of that information out.
Well, yeah, I can read them out very quickly, but as you say, we should put them up on the page. There's Wells Fargo, BNP, Paribas, SunTrust, the Bank of Tokyo, Mitsubishi, UFJ, Mitsui Bank, Citibank from Citigroup, TD Securities, Credit Agricole, Intesta it's from all over the world, Sao Paulo, ING Bank, Natexis, Bayer LB, BBVA Securities, DNB First Bank, ICBC London. I mean, how do they pull them in from all over the world like this? I don't understand.
Well, it kind of destroys the eminent domain argument.
Yeah.
I also just want to add that one of the ways that, in addition to this, that if anyone is available today, that today is a day of national action to protest in front of the Army Corps of Engineers who approve these projects, who can also call to halt these projects because it's been shown that they did it illegally, they didn't do it thoroughly, and they did not consult properly with the indigenous leaders. So in New York City today, from 4 to 6:30 in front of the Army Corps of Engineers is a peaceful, family-friendly protest. I encourage anyone who's around who can go down there. You'll hear great speakers, you'll get educated, and you'll help be part of the movement to help resist this project.
Yeah. So anyway, I won't keep reading all. It's just a long list of banks.
That's the scary thing is I was looking at my list.
And they're not the same banks. Right?
They're not the same banks.
Well, part of what I want to also talk about as a group is just the way that they. What I've learned in my research is the pipeline builders apply for thousands of permits, and they know that most won't get through. There's with the banks in collusion with the loans, the speculation of the dollars involved. There seems to be a very unenlightened brand of capitalism, to put it politely, being practiced. How can we fight against that? Like, what means beyond? I mean, how many more people do we have to get to go to Dakota?
Thousands.
Is it a number?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I
And
believe
is
there's
that
a
really the
tipping
only
point.
answer?
It gets back to what we talked about last week, that we've talked about this week. Boots on the ground. We need more boots on the ground. And whether it's the Dakota pipeline or it's the pipeline over by Indian Point, the reality of it is there's a tipping point for each and every one of these projects. And it's up to us as activists to find what that number is.
Yeah, and also, what I wanted to say was that it is sustained pressure by the citizens that does it every time.
Yes.
It is a very, very vital part of it. It is a sustained pressure. And along that line, I just want to, because I did mention the action for today for the Dakota pipeline, I also want to just get a chance to mention the action that is Thursday for the Spectra pipeline, because this is our backyard. We have to, these two projects are related, by the way. The same company owns, Spectra has great stock in the Dakota pipeline. And there is an action on this Thursday, November 17th, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's at the pipeline site on the Hudson River, and Croton on the Hudson. It's right next to the Metro North. And information for that can be found on Resist Spectra. You can Google that, or can you get that?
Stop
the Algonquin Pipeline Expansion. SAPE2016.org is the website. You can get all the information there. See you there.
Good.
Okay, and we're going to leave the pipeline issue there, but we will be reporting on pipeline information regularly from now on the Voice of Reason. Thanks. We'll be back with a wrap-up.
Have you discovered Rockland County? It's the Hudson River Valley's best-kept secret, where you'll find beautiful river towns. Whether it's the charm of Piermont, the art and soul of Nyack, the history of Stony Point, or the allure of Havistraw, you'll find them all in Rockland County. Start discovering the Rockland River Towns. Visit rocklandrivertowns.org to plan your trip today.
Okay, so we're back with our wrap-ups on Voice of Reason. First, Sherwood is going to talk about police militarization in how it's affected the pipelines and been exposed through the pipeline actions.
Well, I guess what's scary is that the militarization of our police departments have affected every aspect of every day of our life. You now have, I was reading a report yesterday, the military just in the last 2 years has funneled down to local police departments over 200,000 submachine guns. What do local police departments need with submachine guns? You sit there and you look at our SWAT teams. The reality of it is 65% of the number of times that SWAT teams are used are usually on small drug busts where they're just going in to look to catch the guy with drugs. You need to like sit there and take out a little small time weed dealer by bringing in a SWAT team and busting down your doors and using stun grenades. Okay, there's reports from the ACLU that talk about innocent children that have been hurt when these SWAT teams bust through doors, okay, and throw a stun grenade, okay, and a little child ends up injured or dead. There's not one but hundreds of cases like this, okay? And I don't really have time to get into everything that there is on this subject today, and I know we'll revisit it, but I think we need to take a very careful look at just how far we've allowed police departments to become militarized since 9/11, and is it time that we start on local bases going to town hall meetings, talking with our mayors, talking with our elected people on our county commissioners boards, and saying we don't want this equipment in our backyards, we don't want it being deployed on our citizens except in the most dire of national emergencies. And it's a discussion I hope this panel has, and I hope we have it sooner than later.
Thanks. So next is Paul talking about the media suppression and underreportage.
Yeah, we didn't discuss much of this when we were talking about the pipeline, but the fact of the matter is that the media in America is pretty much owned by the corporations, and this pipeline issue is, as I said, like many other issues, it's a case of corporations versus the people. So the corporations don't want this kind of stuff to get out, obviously, because it makes them look bad, makes them look like they are bad. I'm not saying that about all corporations. I think that that there's good and there's bad of everybody, but right now what we're seeing in North Dakota is some of the worst of behavior. And when I say we're seeing it, the only people who are seeing it are the people that are using the alternative media, because our regular media won't touch it with a barge pole. In fact, there's a lot of subjects out there that they're not touching, which is why we're doing what we're doing, because you're not going to be hearing this in too many other places. I don't know what we're going to do about the media in this country, because, as I say, they're owned. We don't have a free media anymore. But what is happening gradually throughout the world, in fact, is that the mainstream media is losing traction rapidly, and that people are turning to the alternative media, which is why it's been given such a bad rap now. We're talking about alt this and alt that because they want to make it sound nasty. The fact of the matter is that a lot of truth is coming out, along with a lot of misconceptions and the rest of it. But if you want to find the truth, don't go to your local newspapers or your TV, because you're not going to hear it. You'll hear little bits and pieces. We have to now seek out our own news, our own information, using alternative media, and hopefully eventually they will become the main media, and things will get back into balance again.
Sounds like trust needs to be commodified. So, Michele, I was going to just give you an open forum for about 2-3 minutes if you want it, and bring us everything you got on pipelines, knowing that we're going to be talking about it with you for a while.
Okay, well, since you told me I could do anything I want, I kind of want to just end a little more broadly than that in a way that connects everything that we talked about, not just the pipelines. And everybody knows that the dice are loaded, and everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over, and everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, the rich get rich. That's how it goes, and everybody knows. Mic drop.
Thanks. And we will be back next week with our Thanksgiving show on The Voice of Reason.
That was Leonard Cohen, by the way.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.